something.
Leah is our student board representative. She was at our last meeting, and so this will be your second one, and we appreciate you starting the meeting for us.
Thank you.
Board members, you have the consent agenda in front of you. Would anybody like to remove any of those items from consent? And if not, I need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Okay, Tom, second, Taylor. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, that was unanimous. Very good, thank you. Well, then we will go straight to the director's update. Dr. Dyer.
All right, well, fantastic, and the review will be up here, and we'll go ahead and go to that next slide, please, and just kind of update you. Back to school, we are 1 month in, and things are really, for the most part, going well. The academics are strong. I went out this morning and had time to visit at Stewart and Arnold. It was great to just interact with some students and teachers in classrooms, and I know Central Office staff is going out and doing that throughout the weeks that we've had so far. I'm very happy with the progress being made in a lot of fronts. We're tying up a lot of loose ends that need to be tightened up, and typical back-to-school type of things that we've been experiencing, along with, of course, COVID, but we talked about that a lot last week. I'm very happy with progress being made, and I'm very happy with the culture that I'm feeling when I'll get out and walk the buildings and see our students and teachers and staff interacting. Our administrators are hard at work making sure that we have what we need, and they're letting us know things that we can help them with along the way too. And just very happy to see that things are going the right direction. Just some things that we've done here in the last month. We did host, Cleveland City Schools hosted the Southeast Superintendent Study Council. We had our TDOE Commissioner, Dr. Penny Schwinn, that was here, and also our TOS Executive Director, Dale Lynch, was here in attendance for that with our area superintendents. We had a lot of lively discussion and on a lot of different topics, but hopefully got some good things accomplished to help our region be stronger together. And we do have a great relationship between the superintendents. We talk all the time and chat about things and just help each other along the way, and I think that's really an important part of what we do through these study councils.
Where did you host that?
Right here. So that was right here. So we were, in fact, where Krista's sitting is where Dr. Schwinn was sitting that day. So we all came in here and had a good discussion. Also had the opportunity, along with our senior district administration, to attend the Cleveland Chambers LeaderCast. That was a great day over at First Baptist Church. They hosted that through the chamber, and great day of learning and hearing and just being with each other and discussing some of the things that were discussed that particular day. Also, Doug Moore, Cliff Easton, and I met with Judge Painter with Juvenile Court, and we had a great discussion last week regarding our partnership and future goals. We have a great relationship with Juvenile Court here. Of course, we go down as Cleveland City Schools and service students educationally that are part of the juvenile justice system. Even though that is a Bradley County function overall as far as juvenile court goes, because that building is literally inside the city of Cleveland, the education for the students involved in juvenile court or in their facilities does fall to us. We also have they have a great counseling program that all families are welcome to use. Even if you're not part of juvenile court, there's a juvenile counseling function there that is free to use, and it's really encouraged our families to look at that for an option for any counseling services. Had the opportunity last Friday to, first of all, start at the high school with Friday Night Football. We had our morning show. The Mix 104 show was there that morning. That's a lot of fun to go over and have the cheer and band and dance team and just everybody involved that morning, and then walked over to Mr. Coach Marino's class and led his leadership class that day. And we had a great discussion about all things Leadership 101, and always good to go in and talk to students, whether they're kindergartners or sophomores in high school. That's one of my favorite things to do. Always a lot of fun to do that. One other thing I wanted to let you know that we're checking into. TOS on Friday sent out an email about an Adopt a Teacher for Humphreys County. Humphreys County was the county that was hit hard with the recent flooding. The elementary school and the junior high were hit particularly hard. In fact, there's hardly anything left, my understanding, in those buildings that's actually usable. So we're finding out details now about how we can go about. There's a statewide campaign to adopt a teacher and to help teachers get back on their feet again in those particular schools. So once we find out more, we're going to pass that along to our schools, to you, and just see how we can all chip in and help help adopt a teacher or two or three or whatever the case may be that they may need help with. So more to come on that, but that's something we're very excited about. Just some things for schedule-wise. The TOS and Department of Education in Fall Superintendent Study Council is next week. So I will be at that conference. That happens the 12th through I think the 15th. And always a good time for all the state superintendents to come together. We come together with the Department of Education staff, and that's where we all learn together what are the latest and greatest things that the department would like us to know about where we're headed as a state in the field of education. Also, another event, this House Summer Education Committee meeting is September, I think it's 22 and 23, I can't see that right there, but I've been asked to share at the legislature about our summer learning camps, and we have great information to share, and that's something I look forward to sharing with our General Assembly members about what's going on in Cleveland City Schools, but specifically what happened this summer. The acceleration camps in our elementary and middle schools, very well attended. We have rave reviews from that. Great things are happened over the summer that led to our fall, and can't wait to share with folks from the state about those experiences. With that, that is my update for today.
Very good. Maybe you can share some of those successes with the board.
Absolutely. You'll see you will see the presentation.
Yeah, when you get the presentation together, that would be
Absolutely.
super. I heard you allude to it a little bit when we met with Senator Bell and
Right.
Representative Hall, and I thought that was really good information. So I'm glad you're going to get to share that, because we thank them 100-fold times for providing transportation as well as
Right.
funding for the summer schools.
Yep.
And we had great attendance.
We had great attendance. Look forward to doing it again next summer.
Thank you. That's great. All right, we'll go ahead to the school attendance and enrollment.
Okay, and we'll ask Mr. Cars to come.
Welcome, Mr. Cars.
Good to be able to talk to you guys today, give you some good news about enrollment. I just want to talk to you about the place we're in this year. I know last year was a struggle with enrollment across the state. I wanted to show you some numbers and show you we're at a total, this was on the 20th day, which is an important day to us. We review staffing all the way through the 20th day, but we're at 5522 total. That's about 40 students more than we ended the year with last year. But you will see in some of the graphs that typically that is a pattern, and we look about even with what we were doing last year. But we'll look at that. One thing I do want to point out is, I say this in all our meetings, that this 9th grade group, if you notice that column at the bottom, my daughter's in that group, and that's I call that the hurricane that's been moving through our district. So it has now moved out of the country of CMS and into the country of CHS this year. So that really rather large group, 501, and it's been bigger than that at times, has marched its way through the district. But you can see the totals there at the schools. Just like I was saying, the middle school has definitely seen a drop from that group going out, and then the high school has inherited that group. So, all right, go ahead, Dr. Raver. So I wanted to show you some graphs and this data dashboard, I gave you that link last year, and I'll send it out to you again just so you have it. But you can get to this dashboard and have kind of live data if you want to look at. But the years we're going to be looking at are the orange line and the blue line. So 2 years ago is the blue line at the top. We were having steady growth up until that was, the year before COVID, and then last year we had the orange line is 2021, and then you can see I've made a mark because we're only in the second month. That the black line that you'll see on each graph is our this year's number. So you can see we're right at. It's kind of dark in there, but we're right at where the orange line was going last year. So we're very typical in what we were seeing last year. The blue line was 2 years ago, and we were higher, but seeing that same kind of shape. What happens typically is we start school. We have a lot more enrollments than we do withdrawals, and then it kind of levels out. And you can see that it kind of tapers down most years. 2 years ago was a little bit of an anomaly. We were having a lot of growth. So, all right, the next one I'll show you is, there is a link, and so I'll share this with you through Julie, so you'll be able to see the live numbers. But Arnold realized in each graph that when we redistrict, the schools got smaller. So all of those that you see clustered up there together were pre-redistricting. So you can still see the orange and the blue. So orange is last year and blue is the year before that. And you got to take scale into account here. We're very similar at Arnold, so there's not really anything different there. Blythe's Bower, you can see orange and blue, we're right on target with where we are. Candy's Creek is, I don't know why the colors changed on me, I think because they don't have a historical year. But we had the reddish color was when it opened, and then the yellow color, it grew, and now we're in the middle of the two. So Candy's Creek is tending to be right in the middle of the 2 years. Mayfield is right where it was last year. Ross, a little bit more. That was a little surprising, almost up to where it was 2 years ago. So it has grown a little bit this year. And you'll see on the next slide, Yates, which we'll skip over to that since it kind of goes with Ross, is back up to where it was 2 years ago. So not only is that whole Ross Yates seeing a little bit of growth as a school compared to other schools, but Yates, we gathered back some of those kindergartners, I think, since it's a K-2 school. I think it's largely affected by the number of K students that didn't show up last year, but they're back this year, on top of the ones that were scheduled to be here this year. And then Stewart is right where it was as well. Our high school and middle school, you can see that difference. If you see the middle school over here has lost its large group, about 80 kids short, but they're having that same tendency to go up. And then the high school started, Ms. O'Brien thought she was going to hit 1,800, but we've not done that yet. But it's gotten close on some days. So definitely that 9th grade group has come over and caused a large increase. And then as far as our race and ethnicity, we're about half white or Caucasian, and you can see our Hispanic in kind of pink there is growing as a district. You've seen that each year, and I'm actually working on some dashboards to show those trends over time, so you'll easily be able to see how these have grown and contracted as groups. But you can see our the orange, the darker orange is Black, African American, the light orange is Asian, and then the purple is multi-ethnic. People are reporting more than one. And then economically disadvantaged, we're at about 35% so far. The next slide will show you what I'll finish up with. This is interesting to me. Every year we show, special ed percentage has stayed relatively stable or going up a little bit. But now ESL is, quite honestly, about the same size. So when you think of our ESL population, it's, for all terms, just a little bit off from being the size of the special ed population as well. So we've seen growth in that, as you know. We talk about that each year as well. So I just wanted to give you a picture of what we're looking at, some of the trends. Like I said, the middle school dropping that group and the high school adding them, and then our ESL and Hispanic populations are growing as they have each year. So, do you guys have any questions or anything you wanted to ask?
Okay.
Regarding the enrollment numbers, are we still good on capacity in the respective buildings?
Right now we are. Now some are getting a little full, but just a reminder about it, we are doing the long-range planning study at this point in time. So I think when we get to the end of that, they will take all these updates from this year into that concept as well, and that way when they're helping us as the board, myself, plan for where we need to be down the road, that will be a key component of that. So facilities-wise, we're in good shape as of today, but we do want to continue to keep an eye on that and watch that. There's a lot of growth happening in Cleveland right now, as you're well aware, with new houses and neighborhoods and things going up. So definitely something to keep knowledge of.
Michael,
Yeah.
back to the disadvantage, economically disadvantaged, wasn't that at one time close to 50%?
It was, the state used to take that number based off of free and reduced lunch numbers, but then when districts started doing the, is it CIP? Is that the name of it? CLP. They now, because some districts were doing free and reduced lunch applications and some were doing CLP, they decided to do, now we have to calculate that off direct certified kids. So the state actually sends us a list of who is served by like food assistance and government assistance program. So we actually get that from the state and then put it in, but that number did drop for everybody.
Michael, can you remind me again, what's the enrollment today at Cleveland High School?
Today is close to, it's about 1780-ish, is what I would guess it is today.
And what about Cleveland Middle?
Well, we'll go with my official one's 9-1. It was about 1,300 then, so it's close to that.
Anybody else, questions?
I'll make sure to get that direct.
That's great information, and I appreciate pulling that together because, you know, 2 years ago you mentioned that there was a growth, but that's when we opened Candy's Creek, isn't it? And what I've observed being in the schools, which we get to do so rarely because of COVID, but they've really utilized those classrooms that they didn't have before, extra, for discovery, pre-K, or those kind of programs that we kind of had to edge out of the buildings because we were so full. So it's really nice that the principals have some room to grow and move and supply areas for their programs in their buildings. And that's so important. It's not just, we've got to have 20 kids in a classroom and every classroom has to be that way.
Right.
Especially at the older buildings like Stewart, you know, that's where I was, so that's where I saw it. But it's really great to see the things that the principal's been able to do for her teams, for RTI teams, places they have to meet now that they didn't have before, because they're able to use those classrooms.
I just got a text from a parent that Cleveland Middle School is right at capacity.
Well, it depends how you define capacity. You know, we're in good shape there. There's room to grow right now. And remember, we just sent a whole lot of kids from the middle school to the high school. So they actually have a little bit more room this year than they did. Now, is that something we have to look at in the long-range study? Of course. And it'll be interesting to see what comes from that.
Did we know
Remember,
that for
back in,
1,500?
I think 1,500 is capacity there. So if you go back and you remember the meeting that we had, one of the things that came out of the meeting we had was the need for possibly looking at intermediate school, you know, that looked at a 5th and 6th grade school, which would help elementary and middle school down the road. So that's something to, you know, that will be part of what we look at down the road as far as the study.
Charlie, this is what's so great about our long-range plans, is when we built the middle school, we opened it in 2000, isn't that right?
Yeah.
And here we are, almost 25 years down the road, and we predicted that it will be full. In 25 years, we will have to have another plan in place. And here we are. Amazing how that works. It's very important to our system, though, to have that long-range
Sure.
plan.
Exactly.
And that shows it. Anybody else? Thank you, Mr. Cars. Appreciate it.
I
Thanks,
think
sir.
I'm on the next, I think I'm starting the
Are you
next
the next
item on.
person?
Yeah, we're moving to
All
strategic
right.
plan.
Go to the slide deck, please. Okay, I'm going to start this off. Really, Dr. Elliott's going to come up here and get clean up on this, but he wanted, Dr. Dyer and Dr. Elliott wanted me to kind of go over some of the data points from the strategic plan for this month's update. So, Dr. Ricker, you can go ahead. I have good news, and that is growth. So we got our growth numbers in, and we are an overall 5 as a district.
Oh,
The highest that you can get. That's very exciting, and you can see for not only overall, but also numeracy and then literacy and numeracy averaged together. We're at 3, which is meeting state growth in literacy by itself. So that tells you how large the 5 must have been in numeracy for them to combine them together, and we still were a 5 with the 2 combined together. And you can see historically there in the graph where we've been each year. So that's really something to applaud and have some celebration about. Remember, growth is, a student is projected every year with a score based on their previous scores on state assessments. And once we take the real assessment, they literally subtract every student's actual score from their predicted score, you know, whether that's +5 or maybe they got a -5, and then they add all of those up and average those for the whole district. So you're looking at a lot of test scores and a lot of predictions. And then if we are 2, if you remember back to your statistics days, that bell curve, to be a 225 means you are way out there, 2 standard deviations past the mean. So that is out there. That's good, good growth. And what that does is take out if your population is struggling, or you have an influx of a population that may not score well. That performance scores won't tell you what you're doing. Growth always tells you: are you making improvements with students, or are you falling a little bit short? So that was really good news.
Like on science, I know 1920 is not there, but it's a 3-year span. We haven't checked on science.
They have not yet. The state just has had an operational science test last year. So you can't have TVOS scores until you have that baseline year. So they did finally test science, and then now this year we'll have predictions, so
Okay.
we'll get a TVOS score on that. All right, we take to the dashboard that you had pulled up. Yes, thank you. You also have a link to this. This is on the website. I put a link on the slideshow too. But the strategic plan, we're also monitoring every KPI under the student success area. And while we don't need to go through every single data point, I just wanted to show you that that is out there on the school or the system's website, and is updated with data as we get it in. So as we pick these KPIs, or these different points that we're measuring all the things in the strategic plan, we're able to monitor and see, for instance, 1.8 is increase the percentage of students scoring on late grade level for iReady. Well, we just got those numbers in from last year. It's at 13.12, which was an improvement over 11.98. So this is our dashboard that we use to kind of monitor as data flows in, this updates, and we're able to see it. So you'll be able to monitor that as we move through the years of progress. And I'll turn it over to Dr. Elliott's going to talk about some of the interventions we've done for strategic plan.
All right. So yeah, I appreciate Mr. Cars for all that he's done to get that dashboard up. That really helps our team out as we take a look at specific areas and how we're doing, and the performance indicators, those KPIs, those key performance indicators. That lets us know areas that we're really doing pretty well in and those that we still need to work on, and so that's a good way to take a look at that. Just wanted to share with you what our academic team, our teachers this past year, as you know, we had a very unusual year, and our teachers, just hats off to everybody in the building continuing that instruction during the whole school year in 2021. And I'm just impressed with our team and the work that they were able to accomplish amongst all that. And here are just some of the highlights. I just wanted to hit several of these to recognize what our teachers and our staff have been doing even last year. We implemented a new ELA curriculum, as you're probably well aware of, and it's just been phenomenal to see that implemented across the district. So if you go into one school to the next school, and one to second grade at Black Bower to second grade at Yates, the same information is being taught that helps with transitions and everything, and very consistent, and they've done a lot of work on that. We also had the opportunity in the spring semester to implement or introduce an ELA curriculum for grades 6 through 12. In our long-range plan, it was to begin this school year, but because of some extra ESSER funds that came in early, we were able to go ahead and jumpstart some of the training and get the materials in their hands and do that work, and I appreciate our English departments picking that up. A new math curriculum at Cleveland High School. We began looking at some support supplement math curriculum, because as the standards are being upgraded, we're trying to look at that. Now our adoption year comes in 2 years, and we'll fully adopt a new one, but they've been exploring and tackling that, and I appreciate that. Of course, ELA professional development all last year with their elementary staff throughout the year. Grades 6 through 12, again, their professional development around the English area. iReady diagnostic, those are those assessment benchmarks. We do a test with our K-8 students at the beginning of the year, in the winter time, and in the spring. And that gives us data to monitor how our students are progressing. And we did that in English and in math, and that helps our teachers to be able to dive in and say, where are students succeeding by standards, and where do we need to work on? And I appreciate everybody going above and beyond to do that. 9 through 12, we implemented and introduced SchoolNet assessments and this serves as a benchmark process at the high school level in our core areas. Leadership trainings, we are doing walkthrough observations with our academic leadership team at our district office, along with our principals and instructional coaches in our schools, where we can go in and spend about 15 minutes in each classroom and take a look at those instructional practices that are taking place. And then that just helps us, give us some data to see what strategic moves are happening instructionally, and what are some areas that we need to improve on to kind of help. And that's where our instructional coaches and principals help us out, to have those one-on-one conferences with our teachers. And they were doing that, and we did that. We did it virtually last year. A couple of us would go in, partner with the principal, and walk around, but we would even have a person who was training us on the tool, a consultant who was helping us on the actual walkthrough observation tool that we'd take our computer, and they would be on Google Meet. We'd turn the computer around, and they would watch the class and then give us feedback on what we needed to look for, and it worked out very well. Just a few other highlights, along with ELA and math, of course, we continue to emphasize STEAM, and we were able to do that last year. Our middle school staff, I just have to shout out to them. They spent a whole year getting ready to be STEM designation, and we are in the process of applying this coming year to hopefully get that confirmed. They've worked hard, and we continue to do that, along with a couple of elementary schools that are really eyeing that STEM designation from the state. They worked on that. Of course, the ongoing virtual enrollment that we did last year, we had a whole wing going over here with virtual school, and our instructional leaders, we added in a Blade facilitator for the elementary school last year, and they did a lot of work. We had professional development in STEAM. Of course, shout out to Dr. Raper and his team with the Chromebooks, and last semester, or the spring semester, we're now K-12 one-to-one system, so that's pretty amazing getting that plan out. We added 2 CAPS Network business partnerships this past spring, Cleveland Utilities and Tenova. We have others on in our sites in the very near future, we hope. Conducted virtual special ed IEPs, our ESL family engagement. ESL department really wanted to engage those families as much as they could in a virtual setting, and we added an engagement coordinator to work with Ms. Duncan. And of course, our summer intervention programs that were taking place last year, we expanded that. So a lot going on, and I just wanted to quickly run down that because a shout out to all the teachers and the staff and everybody, their hard work. Amazing year amongst everything that was going on. So as you see, last summer we did have our intervention program, and some of you had the opportunity to stop by and see some of the great, exciting things happening, mainly in the month of June. Around our schools, our elementary schools, and our middle school. And those are some pictures there. The next slide shows you just the high points of that. Camp Raider was our elementary summer program. We held those at Blythe Bower, Mayfield, and at Ross. But we included that for all of our elementary schools. We just zeroed in on those 3 sites. That helped us for transportation and also helps us for coordinating and overseeing those programs. We had over 300 students in grades K through 4 participate, and that was a really nice number to see come to those 3 sites. And over 100 staff members at the elementary level spent their summer helping our students out. Again, just phenomenal. And that also includes, beyond that, nurses, our transportation team. We offered meals. Pretty much the same thing happened at the 4 Cs camp at Cleveland Middle School. We had started 4 Cs about 3 years ago as a system and really had a good start to it. But when the state provided extra funds for us this past year, we were able to up that game with 150 students attending that program, 39 staff members over at the middle school this summer. So a lot of work going into trying to help these students out, accelerate their learning. Credit recovery, as you well know, happens each year at our high school, and that continued on this past summer as well. So really excited of the work going on in our summer. A couple of stories I want to share with you. Well, let's go back here just for a minute. A couple of stories I want to share with you because I think we can talk about what happened and look at the numbers and all that, but sometimes you just have to remember the faces that we see when we go into those buildings and excitement. Right there with Mr. Price, assistant principal over at Blythe Bower, is a young boy in our schools. And this summer, he had the opportunity to come to our camp. And one day, Ms. Bender and I were out visiting the camps, and we were able to go by and walk into one of the classrooms. And as we walked in, we talked to this young boy's camp teacher. And she said, she called the boy's name and said, will you share with Ms. Bender, Dr. Elliott, about what just happened? And he was just beaming. He was excited and everything. And he had just learned how to read. And he told us how excited he was to learn how to read, and he was so glad for the camp. And then she said, well, what else are you excited about? I said, well, I learned how to read, and this week is my birthday. And so he was just so excited, and it's just worth it. All that time, all that effort and work is worth it for these kind of stories right there. It's amazing. The next slide also goes into another piece, and I debated whether to share this and put this on here, but I did want to take a moment to share. We have partnered with a few networks across during the time, last year and a half, doing some intensive work. One of those is with the LIFT Network, Leading Innovation for Tennessee Network. And that is where districts come together looking at literacy practices and really looking at literacy practices at the elementary level. Last year was our first year to implement this. The LIFT Network last week sent me an email and said they wanted to share, we're having a statewide meeting this week online. And they said, we're going to share this quote with you guys, with the whole state this week. Are you okay with it? And after I read it, I was like, yes, I am. So I wanted to share it with you. It says, Cleveland City hit the ground running in their first year of joining the LIFT Network and demonstrated that great strides can be accomplished with focus and determination. It was not by chance that Cleveland City saw tremendous growth from fall 2020 to spring 21, but by their intentionality of planning and execution across the district. They were deliberate in building out a vision of strong literacy with their school leadership teams and instructional facilitators to ensure that they were aligned to the literacy work. This cohesion and alignment amongst leaders allowed for a clear and concise execution of their plan to trickle down to their schools. They then followed this up with having strong systems in place for their teachers to receive coaching and support around their literacy vision. Lastly, they couldn't have accomplished this progress without the amazing efforts by their teachers. With great mindsets in place, a thirst for learning, and a commitment to improving their instruction for their students, their teachers flourished. And again, those last couple of sentences about the teachers, that's what it's all about, is they make the connections for our students to continue this learning and literacy. And I'm just proud of the work that has taken place. There is definitely more work to do, and we know that. But just had to take a moment to just take a deep breath and reflect, and also celebrate all the great work that our teachers and staff have done in the past year. As we transition, though, from this past year to next year, I just want to remind you that one of our overarching goals and vision here are those 5 C's in our plan for a portrait of a graduate. When those students leave us at Cleveland High School, are they successful in these areas? And we want to make sure that they are. But also we want to make sure throughout the next few years that we're looking at the end of the 5th grade, into the 8th grade, at the high school level, are they successful in these areas? And we are doing that by partnering with some great organizations to give us insight, give us feedback, we give them feedback, and give us support. As I mentioned earlier, the LIFT Network, our CKLA program, Instruction Partners is a group we work with, Capturing Kids' Hearts, obviously hits the character aspects that we're talking about. Tennessee STEM Innovation Network sits with that critical thinking, creativity piece. The NIET that you're familiar with, that leadership and collaboration is a big, important piece along with the culture. Of course, different components related with the Tennessee Department of Ed, of course, our summer programs, and our CAPS network, hitting those. And we also deal with other PD specialists that help us with our specific curriculums that we're looking at. So we are working to coordinate to address these 5 C's in different ways, and I'm proud of the work that's going on. The last couple of pieces here are some of the high points of where we're headed this year. We're going to continue that professional learning in English and language arts. We're expanding that even at the high school and middle school level. We're going to be creating a math task force this year. 2 years from now, we'll be adopting and looking to purchase math curriculum, updated math curriculum. So we are going to start doing research now, looking at the standards, also what are the best practices and what's the research out there, what's the best curriculum to use, and we'll start that up. continue those walkthroughs that we talked about. School net assessments at the high school level, we're expanding those and how many we're doing to do some benchmarking within reason, of course. We're creating after-school tutoring programs that I'll tell you a little bit about in a minute. We're also have an opportunity, we've been given some money from the state to do some STREAM camps. That's STEAM with the R for reading added in after school for mainly our elementary and middle school folks. So this year at some point, we're doing some brainstorming right now of what that might look like, but we will be offering some enrichment type after school extra activities around STREAM. We want to expand our CAPS network. We've added and started the year with new CTE programs, 4 new ones related to that, and we're continuing to look at our schedules and the best way we can address those interventions for ESL and also special ed. So those are some of the high points related to that. The last piece of this is I wanted to tell you what we're getting ready to launch and we're excited about starting actually next week, and that's our after-school tutoring program. These interventions to help during this time where we had students that were out and needing extra support. We're going to be offering, thanks to our state and using ESSER 3.0 money, we're going to be offering some after-school tutoring. It's going to focus on 15% of our 1st through 5th grade students and around about 10% of our middle school students this coming year. The program is going to be called Raiders XD. XD stands for extra dose of tutoring going on, and that's going to begin next week, and we're going to run it for 12 weeks in the fall semester and then another 12 weeks second semester. That'll be 24 weeks to hopefully get a big lift off of specifically reading support and doing some math as well during that time. We're hoping for over 130, our goal is 130 small groups this year. That's a 1 teacher to 3 student ratio at the elementary, 1 to 4 at the middle school. And so we're looking at over 110 staff to help us out and work in that. We've got our staff lined up. We're now working on getting those students and families committed to it. But that'll be going on throughout the year. At the elementary level, we're looking at 4 days, 4 afternoons a week, Monday through Thursday, for students to stay after for an hour after school for this. At the middle school, we're doing a 2-hour high dosage one day a week for middle school students to really hit that hard and meet their needs for that. So we're excited. It's going to take a lot of work. Again, hats off to our staff stepping up to the plate and saying, yes, we will stay after school after we've taught all day and do another hour of tutoring related to that. But that's the highlights of where we've been and where we're going. And we continue, the last piece is we continue to look at this data that Michael's sharing. We're going to begin working with having individual school meetings with our leadership teams on specific school data to take a look at what are some of those specific areas that school needs to address compared to the whole district. And so we begin those this week, and we'll continue that the next couple of weeks, meeting with our school leadership teams regarding that.
What about the kids' transportation in the afternoon?
Again, another group, Mr. Taylor and Valerie Mack and her team of bus drivers have been amazing. They've been working with our tutoring coordinators to take in the list, and we will be able to provide transportation. What we're looking at is around 4:30 when the elementary group is out, that those elementary routes that they're regularly running, when they're done, one of those buses will come back into that community school and pick up anybody who needs transportation home at that point after that hour is over. And then at the middle school and the high school for credit recovery and the middle school tutoring, we'll end that about 5 because we're doing a 2-hour program, and that gives us a chance to get bus drivers back around and pick up our high school and middle school kids to get them back into their communities and get them home.
Right?
Are there any plans to provide snacks for the kids? Because if they're like my kids, they're out on school and it's like they've never eaten all day. So
that is on the list of things we've got to iron out. We're meeting with our site tutoring managers tomorrow, and food is definitely one of those we've got to work through. So I agree. It really helps to have that food there for them on a regular basis. Now, we do have Last year, we began at some of our schools the supper program, and I know that will be happening in many of our schools too.
Amy? How many students would be in a tutoring class?
Well, one teacher for 3 students.
3?
And what we'll probably do is partner teachers up, and so there'll be like 2 to 6 in a classroom. That way, if, let's say a teacher does, after over 12 weeks, has a doctor's appointment they need to go to, then we have coverage in that case. That helps us out for substitute situations that might arise, because we were trying to think through that. But yeah, 1 to 3 is the ratio, and probably 2 adults to 6 kids. That is what we're looking at.
What you would hear is the word high dosage. That's the
Yes.
word you'll hear, high dosage tutor. And the research that's out there shows when you keep the ratio low 1 to 3, that your amount of effect is way higher than even if you go 1 to 4 at elementary. Now, high school and middle school is a little different as far as those numbers go, but 1 to 3 is your magic number that we are shooting for, and that's actually required by the state for the grant funding and things that are coming in.
That's a huge savings for families because tutoring can be extremely expensive, and some families would not be able to afford it.
Right, exactly.
Hey, Jeff, would you expand a little bit on the the program that you have in the middle school, your ELA? Exactly what does that look like?
Amplify is the parent company of CKLA, and so when we adopted CKLA for K-5, our middle school team, as they were looked at the task force, they were between 2 curriculum. Well, they decided to go with Amplify as well, so it's a follow-through to CKLA for 6 through 8. Now, it has a little different approach for age-appropriate and comprehension level compared to fluency at the younger age. There's a balance there, but it still continues a lot of the tenets of what CKLA is doing because it's the Amplify piece. And then we transitioned Amplify, just to follow up on that, Amplify is not at that high school level. We're using a Pearson product is what we use for the high school English.
Any other questions for Dr. Elliott? Leah?
I had a question regarding Camp Raider. I think from what I've heard is that we're going to plan on doing that in future summers if we have the ability to. So, of like educators that I've spoken to, a lot of them had like small concerns about the amount of time they got as like a brain break, especially in the younger grades. From what I understand of the schedule, it was more of like a 15-minute or so recess, and they obviously had their 30-minute lunch. So I was wondering if in future years, like for those 2-hour spans of ELA or those 2-hour spans of math, if there was like a small brain break that we could try and schedule in like in the middle of like 5 to 10 minutes just to kind of give especially these younger kids a break, because sometimes it can be really overwhelming.
Yeah. And that's very good feedback and good to know. And there was some flexibility in that, and at the same time, there were some guidelines from the state that we were expected to follow, and you're right on it, the number of minutes expected for math and reading. But with some flexibility in there and creative scheduling, I think that definitely can be handled and done. Yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you, Dr.
All
Elliott.
right, thank you.
It was great. Oh, my head is spinning by the information.
Well, and I will just add, Michael Kars, to start there, with data dashboards and all things data, I will send him an email or a text to say, hey, the next thing we have is a dashboard for him. And it's got all the information right at your fingertips, connects right into PowerSchool, and it's just really easy from my end to go in and read it. Now, I have no idea what he does behind the scenes to make that happen, but that's great that he's able to do that and take the information from some large spreadsheet that we may get and boil it down to something we can all understand. So I appreciate the approach to making it easy for the layperson to go in and read the data and to understand exactly where we are, whether it's attendance or things dealing back with our KPIs, key performance indicators, those kind of things. So thank you for that. And from Dr. Elliott, you heard everything, and that was just a snapshot, right? So that's just a snapshot of the things that are going on in the schools and with this department there with academics. There are so many different running pieces to this that there's a lot. A lot of things are happening, a lot of data to follow, a lot of different areas that have to be covered. So I appreciate the work that not only they do, but the department and everybody else working on this is performing each and every day. Big job.
Well, then we're ready to move forward, Dr. Dyer.
So, going along with that theme, we have a lot happening in Cleveland City Schools right now. And one of the most important things for me is our strategic plan. And you have to keep in mind that our strategic plan, this covered one piece of it today, which is an important piece. Our academic piece, student success, is very, very important. That's what we're about. But we also have the other pieces that are equally important, even though it may not necessarily directly affect the academic, although when I even say that, it does. When you think about engaged workforce, you better have engaged workforce and the best teachers, the best support staff, the best principals, and so forth. All the different components that go with that. When you think about safe and healthy schools, when you think about all the different aspects with social emotional learning, about drills, all the different components dealing with school nutrition, and you think about all the different things that also go into communications, and all the different components of communications, and all the different strategies you have to use, both internal and external. And on top of that, you add our portrait of a graduate, the thing that's going to drive our district forward for a long time and really help propel us forward. All this stuff takes people, and the people make it all happen, whether it's our employees, whether it's our students, whether it's you as a school board, myself. This is a big train to drive, and there's so many different moving parts with it, that one of the things that I'd like to at least discuss today, and if you approve it, move forward with, is a chief of staff position. And when we start looking at that, and I think we have the slides ready to go up here, we're at a point where it's really easy for things that are external, such as COVID or other structural things that are out there, to knock us off track and to not allow us to focus on the things we need to focus on. And along with what I just said, we have an opportunity, I think, to really structure a position where we have a key person in our district office who can be the conductor of this train dealing with the strategic plan. Now, I'm going to be heavily involved. You're involved from the board perspective. All the different directors, supervisors, everybody in the whole school system is involved with strategic planning and all the different components that go with that. But I do think we're at a point now where we need one person who can really drive the train and keep us all going down that same path. You talk about row the boat. We need a key rower, and we need somebody who can make sure that they're checking up on us and making sure that we're doing the work that needs to be accomplished. I'll share with you a job description. We can pull it up here as well. And I want to go through just some of the components. I'm not going to read this all to you because I know you've had an opportunity to do that and everything that goes with it. But the job goal is to assist the director of schools with the day-to-day operations of the school district, as well as providing leadership and management to support the attainment of the goals and objectives of the district's strategic plan. That's a lot. If you heard what Dr. Elliott was talking about a minute ago, again, that's one component of the plan, and that's only parts of that component. So it's very detailed, and those key performance indicators, those KPIs, are things we need to be checking those every single day, and all the different components of the total strategic plan to make sure that we are in that boat going the same direction. Some of the essential functions that you'll look at here, it would, in this role, serve as the second in command in absence of the director of schools, assistant director with the daily general administrative operations of the school district. That's an important piece of it. There are times that I need assistance in that. Right now, that's under the chief of academics job description to be the second in command and also help handle general administrative things. But the world of academics is growing exponentially. You heard all these things a second ago. And that's a key component. I would love to free up time for the director of academics to be the director of academics solely and have someone in this role doing this. Serve as the director's designee at the direction of the director. Work cooperatively with senior district administration to advance educational mission. Manage ongoing projects. There are so many different ongoing projects, whether you look at the COVID task force. We were all hoping we could sunset that committee, but obviously we cannot. Driving that along with all other projects that come along, special projects that either the board may assign or things that come up, whether it be looking at rezoning or any other thing that comes down the pipe at some point. A lot of things happen in the school system where you need just a special committee to pop up for a short amount of time or even a longer amount of time to help get things accomplished. So that would be a key person for that. The district strategic plan would be the number one, I think, thing that this person would be involved in. Making sure that we are staying on task, that we're managing our KPIs, that each of the directors in different departments, back this summer when we've met, what I was looking for was, for example, I want to see 5 objectives that we can measure in your department based on your strategic plan and things that we need to accomplish for this year. Have we had time to get into that really at this point? I'll be honest with you, no. This year has been consumed with doing what we need to do on a daily basis to keep the doors open and to provide the educational plan we need to for our students and our staff, along with dealing with the COVID task force and all the changes that we've been dealt. If we truly want to move all those different departments, which encompass a whole other group of people, whether it be operations, finance, whatever the case may be, then we need someone who's driving that train again, as I said that several times now, to really make sure we're measuring what we treasure. That's that saying that I didn't come up with, but it makes a lot of sense. If we're going to have goals, we need to be able to measure those. Each department can do that, but we need someone to help coordinate that and to make sure that we're having regular meetings about that to keep us all on track with what we're trying to accomplish as a school system. Policy development, drafting board goals and progress reports so that you can see those, so you can have access to what we're doing as far as the KPIs and getting that to you. Michael is great at making sure that we have those, but we need to probably work on communicating that better to you guys and to the general public and those kind of things. And that's just one example of what this person can help with. Provide technical expertise, information, assistance to me so that I can help make the best decisions and help make things happen for the school system from my capacity so that I can provide that information to you or provide information to you for when it's time to take a vote on a certain thing. Communication support, and then also things dealing with communicating collaborative with other district administrators, personnel, outside organizations, parents, and so forth. There's a lot that goes into a role such as this. And, you've had the opportunity to hear from me on this. You've seen the job description. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have and try to help you understand this position even more if I can.
Do we have an organizational chart to put up there?
Yeah, if we go back, if you pull, to go to the next slide, I believe.
There you go. Okay, just
So,
a question.
Yeah, the way this would work, the Board of Education, of course, is at the top, and then I'm your one employee, so I'm there. Then we have, of course, Julie's role and principals that would both be direct reports to me at this point. The chief of staff role would come in there, and then we have the row dealing with our different directors, and then supervisors and specialists. Now, I would say the directors also would have access to me. Our central office is not very big, folks, so I sit right there with them all in my office. So it's not like we wouldn't have constant communication anyway, but in a formal job organizational structure, in a formal structural view, this is how that would operate, how that flow chart would work.
I was just going to be funny and ask where you were going to find that animal.
Dr. Dyer, share it with the board. When we were talking about the agenda and we were planning the meeting, I said, well, what does the director of academics do? I mean, I know, but I want to know in my head how that plugs in.
Yeah.
He went on for about an hour about everything the chief of academics does. So I said, well, okay, so that's a big job.
It is.
And of course, that's Dr. Elliott's job right now. And so I asked him, what did we do when we didn't have director of academics,
Right.
And would you share?
Yeah, when I first got to Cleveland City Schools, there was not really a director of academics. It was supervisors of this, supervisors of that, and it worked okay. It really did. I mean, it had been that way for I don't know how long, quite a long time. But I'm a firm believer in that you need organization. And I think you need organizational efficiency. And you remember we brought in Leanfrog to help us with an organizational efficiency study. And that seems like forever ago, but it was probably, 4 years ago now? And, they helped us all understand better that we needed to clean up our job descriptions. We needed to make sure that they met the legal standards and all those kind of things. And now they do. And Kelly Kaiser is now doing a great job of making sure that we're making those make sense. But beforehand, just dealing with the world of academics, there was not a chief person involved in that. And it was very easy for things to sometimes, I'm not going to say get messy, but sometimes trip over each other. So you may have professional development from, and I'm not saying anybody's name by this, I'm just using this as an example, but maybe the special populations supervisor was planning professional development, and then you had for maybe example of the secondary supervisor planning it, professional development, and maybe they both hit at the same time, but you need the same people in both groups. So it was really conflicting issues kept popping up and things kept tripping over themselves, or we may need the same group of people that would be called to the same meeting but have to be in two different places.
You use the term silos. They're
Yeah,
all in silos.
everything worked in silos in a lot of ways. Not always, but in too many ways there were too many silos. And what I've been able to see through this and through Dr. Elliott's leadership in the director's role is those silos have been broken down. And now we have the CTE supervisor meeting with the special population supervisor, meeting with the ESL supervisor, secondary, and so forth, and we're getting things done. That level 5 TVOS doesn't just happen. Those kind of nice words coming from the LIVE network don't just happen. It happens because planning is taking place and things are getting done, and I have to congratulate the people getting those things done. When you look at the names that go with those titles, we have great staff, we have great workers, and things are getting accomplished because people get it done.
Well, you don't want, everybody's working hard, but you want that hard work to be efficient.
Right.
And not be repetitive, not be, this department's doing the same thing as that department, and they're all
Right.
spinning their wheels, and they're getting things done, but they could be way more efficient if there was coordination. I'm sorry, I jumped ahead.
That's okay.
Go ahead.
Who is in each one of those positions? I want to make sure I've got it straight.
So Director of Academics would be Jeff Elliott, right in this role as the Chief of Academics, okay? So
Right.
that's where he is right now.
Right now.
Then you, of course, have Cindy for Business Operations, Hal Taylor, Student Information Systems, that's SIS, that's Michael Kars. Then you have Director of Innovation, Cody Raper. And then you have Student Services, Doug Moore, and then Human Resources, Kelly Kaiser.
Okay. It just looks a little different than it used to be, different names, positions have changed.
Sure. Yeah, things have changed a little bit. Those names have been now since we got with the Leanfrog studies. That's 4 years of these titles.
You might have to go through with the academics, like Kelly and Jeff.
Yeah, so I can't see them all from here, that color
I'll
will
let you
hard to see from here. But when we think about it, if you look, Jeff, you want to talk about it, because you can see, because you're able to see it from here.
Yeah, in academics, we have a tremendous team, and so we have secondary supervisor this year, Dr. Lanita Lang, and then our elementary supervisors, Ms. Kelly Bender. We have Rennie Wittenbarger as our CTE supervisor. ESL supervisors, Ms. Christy Duncan. David Stone is our supervisor of special populations, and then we also have supervisor of PD and the federal programs is Dr. Barnes, Joel Barnes, and those are the supervisors in that academic world.
Sorry, I just couldn't see the writing on here to tell who was what on that. So.
Any other questions? Well, so what we need.
I have a question.
Oh, there's a question here.
So what are you going to do now?
There's plenty. No, that's a good question. And my old boss used to call this chief of stuff. That chief of staff role is chief of stuff. And what the superintendent's role in this is directing that training. And it's a good question. I know you meant it as a funny question, but it's a good question though. There are so many components that we're all responsible for now. And the job of a superintendent, I think these days, is a little bit of everything. And you're trying to put yourself in all the different shoes of all the different staff and all the different employees, which pulls you a lot of different directions, which means it's really hard, I think, these days, for a superintendent to lead all efforts of a strategic plan. I'm not saying that they've always done that by themselves, or I was doing that by myself, because we have a great team that does that, but the job just keeps changing. A lot of what we have to do, a lot of these days, is public relations or communications or being in public places and and doing things, and that's great. That's a big part of it. And visiting schools. So it's good to have somebody, I think, in this role who can meet with me on a regular basis, update me on all things going on in the school system, and then let me know from their perspective, here's where you need to spend some time maybe in the next week or two. And then help me kind of manage my schedule. Julie can tell you the schedule gets full 2 months in advance or more. And that's good that you know what's going on, but also at the same time, it doesn't make you very nimble sometimes to be able to switch and move and do some things. And I'm hoping this role will help me to do that and be a little bit more agile and be able to go and take part in more things than just filling up a calendar with meetings. So that's one hope that I have.
So how many direct reports do you have right now?
Right now, it's all the directors across that line, which is not a huge amount when you talk about this big school system, but it's a lot. It's a lot.
So the principals are not reporting to you directly?
They do as well.
Okay, so how many principals?
Yes. So we have, what, 6 principals? 7 principals.
So
8.
we're
I'm
talking-
trying to think in my head. I'm sorry. 8 principals.
And so 8 and 6, and then 7. So we're talking 16 direct reports.
Right.
That's a lot.
It's a lot when you're talking about the district
Right.
office. And you know, I know people might say, you know, work in a school, and you have a lot of direct people there. And I get that, because I've been there and done that. With this role, I have to think through that, and I've been a middle school principal, I've been a high school principal. Those jobs are stressful. The job of a principal is very stressful, and you have a lot of people coming at you from all different directions. And I get that, and I understand that role is tough. This is a little different. You know, this is talking about where do we take this district over the next, well, the strategic plan has 4 years of life left. Where do we go the next 4 years and make those big decisions? And how do we put somebody's hands on the ground with this and feet in the boot, to move this thing forward and get this thing rolling? And that's something I'm really looking forward to here.
I think I got the gist of this from reading the job description and
Right.
seeing a lot of assist with and things, but I just want to make sure
Right.
I'm clear. The decisions will still come, you'll still be the chief decision maker.
Yes, that doesn't change anything. No, the recommendations that I would bring to you come from me, and you know, this person would supply me with information along with the directors and principals and so forth, and really help me make the best recommendation that I can to you as a school board. But that final decision on recommendations coming to you would come from me, and I would still be your person to come to for all things dealing with Cleveland City Schools. That changes none of that.
This kind of reminds me of Hal. I mean, you're the main boss, but Hal's got, his hands are so busy. When we put Scotty Dye in there, I don't know how many times Hal's thanked us for that. I mean, he just got that main person that goes to Hal and
Sure.
can cover Hal, and he's just doing the transportation, the maintenance of schools and stuff like that, where you got the whole system.
If you're looking at an analogy in one specific area of the school operations, that might be one that you look at. You know, Hal doesn't necessarily always get out, and he's not the ones taking the screws out of the air conditioning units and stuff like that, although sometimes he does, and sometimes you have to. But Scotty's that go-to person.
Yes.
And
I think this would be the same way.
that's a good analogy in one simple not simple, but one division of central office on how that might work and what that may look like.
I think we all like Dr. Dyer to be in the schools too, so when you see what Dr. Elliott showed us just in that one component there of everything that was going on this last year, and then you think, oh, and by the way, we don't want you in your office meeting with all these directors. We want you out in buildings. We want you talking to teachers and students. And I just think that it's just a really impossible task. Anyone else have any comments? So we need a vote. Oh, I would like to ask one question. What impact on the budget does this have?
Yeah, now I talked to Cindy, and of course that's something that I talked to her about. We are in good financial shape. So with this position being approved, we are in good financial shape for not only this year, but future years as well. And, you know, we've been able to do a lot this year with our budget, providing, you know, good raises for all employees. We're adding employees in schools, whether it's through the ARC or ESSER or through other means. So I feel like we're in good shape right now. I really
believe
do,
you
and
said
we are
it.
financially solid.
Excuse me, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
you're good.
I believe you sent us the information about the percentage of our staff is in administration, because that's something that the report card used to report. I don't know
Right.
if it still does or not. You can look at a school system and see if 6% of their budget goes to administration or whatever, and I believe you sent the board the information that was just 2%,
Right.
including city schools. So sometimes when you're out in the public, you hear that we're top-heavy, that we've got too many administrators, too many bosses, and I think that's good information to have. Say, well, we're only at 2%. The average across the state is about 4%, I believe. Is that right, Dr.
Yeah,
Dawes?
it is. And when Lean Frog did their study, we are very, I'll just say, efficient in our operations. We're a lean and efficient organization, which is great. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. The money, the major part of staffing needs to be in schools. The funding needs to go to the classrooms as much as we can, and I get that, and I'm 100% on board with that. And I know we do a great job with that, and we watch that closely. Part of what you approved, in fact, a little bit off topic today, but part of what you approved earlier in that ESSER 3.0 application is a program called Glimpse. And one of the things it's going to allow us to do is to take our budget, fit it against our strategic plan, and monitor it as we go. So we'll have real-time data that really showcases how we spend our money, how it fits our plan, and what kind of cost benefit that we're getting on the back side of that. So can't wait to share that information with you down the road, but that's one of those things we do monitor closely.
There was a little article in paper, in some paper that I can't read because I don't subscribe to it, so it's not the Cleveland Gazette, but about a percentage of money that's not getting to the classrooms nationwide of money. And so I thought to myself, well, I think we have a good percentage of our money getting into the classroom, so it would be nice to see that kind of data.
Yeah, and we'll have that, not right away, but down the road.
Yeah. Okay, that's all I have. Do we have a motion to approve the chief of staff position? Carolyn makes the motion.
Second.
Charlie second. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, great.
Uh,
Go ahead.
With that, I would like to make an announcement regarding that. I was going to wait on this because, honestly, didn't know how you might vote. So I want to always wait until you have your eggs in the basket there. But the chief of staff role is one that's going to be really important for me, for our district. And, you know, you want to make sure you have the right people in the right seat. And we've heard a lot about that. If you want to move your organization forward, you better have the right people in the right seat to make it happen. Dr. Elliott has been a tremendous worker in his field, the chief of academics, gone above and beyond the call of duty these last 18 months, not only doing all the stuff that you saw up here, but also everything that had to deal with the COVID task force and the leading of that group. The public will never know all the work and time that behind the scenes had to happen in order for us to convert from back in March of whatever, 19 to virtual learning and all the things that happened in about 1 week's time. He didn't do everything with that. There were a lot of other hands in that. But he was the person commissioned to lead that charge and did a great job and has continued to do that, on top of all the things academics. Saying that, I am going to appoint Dr. Elliott as chief of staff, and he and I have talked about that. I think he is the right person for that job, and that will open up that job for director of academics, which will be posted for both internal and external people to apply for. So I want to officially name Dr. Elliott the chief of staff for Cleveland City Schools.
Congratulations. Dr. Elliott, can we possibly make you any harder than we have?
Well, you know, this will continue to consume time. This is a big job. Now, you know, what it will allow now is for the next director of academics to solely focus on the world of academics, and for this job to focus on academics, but also a lot of other features too, to really, like I said, put this put us in the right place to move forward as a school system in all different components. And I'm really excited about where this goes. So I thank you for that. And thank you, Dr. Elliott, for taking the charge. And
Have you and Kelly got a time frame for the director of academics?
well, he just found out about this, so, you know, we'll sit down after the meeting and talk about that kind of thing.
I mean, 6 to 8
But
weeks?
where we're gonna go, I mean, just being honest with you, you know, now you have to post the director of academics job, let it get out there, you have to fill that, so if it's somebody from the outside, it moves pretty quick. If it's somebody from the inside, there's a trickle-down effect. So I don't know exactly when we would have the official transition to make all this stuff happen right this second. It could very well be that, you know, I'm just talking here, okay, so just talking. If you have internal candidates and there's a trickle-down effect, the chief of staff role may not be the chief of staff role until possibly January.
That's what I was
It's
thinking.
just
yeah.
one of those things that may take a while. Even if you take somebody from the outside, you know, from another district for that director's job, they still have to put in notice and all those kind of things to go with that.
So
So,
Jeff could get real busy.
yeah,
On
yeah.
2 jobs.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So just one of those things we'll have to watch and see, but of course I'll keep you updated on that as we go.
Very good.
All right, thank you.
We are ready to move to our staff easy substitutes.
Yes, I'm gonna ask Mr. Kaiser to come forward.
I might not have known, but I might have thought you were crazy if that wasn't what you did, so. I will take a moment to say, there's no one more deserving than
That's true.
Dr. Elliott for that promotion. Tremendous job. He won't be busy, he was already doing it.
Yeah. It might be worth it.
Someone else is going to add.
I'm here to ask you to consider entering a contract with Staff EZ to take over our substitute staffing. I think you were given the contract already earlier, when you received that. If we have one issue that I hear the most about from our staff, it is the lack of available substitute teachers. It's just very challenging. I can tell you in August of 2021, our fill rate was about 60%. In August of 2020, it was 88%. In August of 2020, we had 248 openings. In August of 2021, we had 548. That's just because of COVID and lots of things going on, but staffing of substitutes are already challenging. Approving this contract will allow us to have someone that specializes in finding substitutes. It'll take the payroll off of our business department. It will take the onboarding and many of those, dealing with those staffing issues, off of the human resources department. It'll take some liability off the district. We'll take the training of substitutes off the district. And I think it will be a positive experience for the school district as a whole. I just want to kind of open it up for questions. I know you've had the opportunity to take a look at that contract. You may have questions about how Staff EZ operates, and I'll be happy to take those.
Anybody have questions for Mr. Kaiser?
Will they take the existing substitutes, or will they need to reapply? How is that gonna?
The first step will be that they will get a list of our existing substitutes, and their plan will be to take on all of those individuals. They will get phone numbers from us, and they'll be called, and of course offered the opportunity to work for Staff EZ. They will be Staff EZ employees at that point, but they certainly will go with the people that we have on staff first.
So this goes off Cindy. Do we send money to them and they pay them, or?
Yes, so there, of course, as with anything, there's an additional fee for having them do this, but we will have to reconcile all of the subs each month. Basically, they'll send us an invoice, we have to make sure that all matches, and then we will pay Staff EZ, and then they will pay their invoices.
Okay, right now we're paying, if you got BS, how much is that?
BS, well, it depends, so it's 65 if you're
Certified.
if you're not certified, if you're just
BS.
meet the minimum. It is 70 if you have a 4-year degree, and then it is 80 if you are certified.
Okay, so,
Unless you go into some long-term setting.
and associates what?
65.
Are we comparable to all the districts around us? Do we need to look at raising that?
We're comparable locally. I don't know if we're comparable all the way across the state. They would start start with they will start with the rates that we have now, and I think that would be something we'd have to discuss possibly later if we don't see improvement.
It just seems like in the 22-23 budget, we might need to look at, I mean, $5, I mean, I don't know. It's getting to be such an issue, and we need to be at the top of the pay scale, I think, in this area.
We raised it 2 years ago,
2 years ago.
I believe we raised it 2 years ago, and we hadn't raised it in a considerably long time before that, prior to that.
We just
Yeah.
need to look at that, I think.
Yeah.
Next
We,
budget.
and that's one of the things, I think Lean Frog looked at that, and at that time, we were pretty much in pace with what everybody else was doing. It's sometimes not the easiest information to find out what others are paying, but we can certainly do our best to do that, because we do want to stay comparable
I
with
think
what others are doing. Yeah, I agree. Same thing with teacher salaries and all salaries, basically.
when we start doing the 22-23 budget, we need to look at that.
We had some additional challenges along the way now that we didn't have whenever we did that much.
Is there going to be an impact on this change for teachers?
No, in my opinion, because I've used a service like this before, in my opinion, it's going to be easier for both administrators and teachers, because you're going to have one call to make, and that call goes to the staff EZ company, and then they take that from there, and they're the ones in charge of calling and calling and calling until a sub is on the line. Right now, it's up to a teacher and administrator to do that, which can be a considerable thing. Especially you think about the mornings of a school. That's the number one thing I hear from administrators is, I have to start calling people at 5:30 in the morning or 6 o'clock in the morning. Well, now, that would not be what they do. It's one call to staff EZ, and the staff EZ takes over from there, and they make those calls and fill those subs.
I did some of those calls doing Michael earlier,
Yeah.
I mean, it's,
Yeah.
you might go through, I mean, it's
So
Long time ago.
this is the number one thing I hear from principals.
Teachers will see no difference in the absence system. We will still use the same calling system. Staff EZ will have access to that, and then they will have a person that is in charge of kind of those last minute fills, which are by far the most challenging thing to fill. If somebody has to call in the morning of because of a sick child or whatever, they'll have somebody that's staff that will make those phone calls.
Carolyn?
Where is the staff EZ company located?
They're located in Tennessee. They are.
They are in Tennessee.
They are, and one of the reasons that we got some good references, I talked to Union County, Lebanon Special, Manchester City, some school districts in Tennessee that are currently using them. And then education staffing is their specialty, that's what they do.
I have a question about if a principal or the teacher is not satisfied with the sub. I was engaged in that quite a bit.
No, that never happens. There is a process that they have in place. If it is serious enough, the substitute can be asked to leave. If it's, regardless of what the issue is, there's a form that they fill out, they send it to staff EZ, or the person that is on site, and then they have a discussion with that substitute. and take
So
that
if,
back.
as a principal and the teacher, they decided that, maybe after a couple of times, they didn't want this sub anymore.
They don't get to come back.
Okay.
And again, it's finding the right seat, so, if it doesn't work, if a substitute may not be great in the kindergarten classroom, they might be really good in a fourth grade classroom in another school or whatever the case may be. So that can be stuff that's worked out, or if it's somebody that just doesn't need to be back, period, we work that out with the staff ED.
That is always the school district's call, whether they continue to work for us or not, work in our school buildings or not.
Are substitutes covered by any insurance?
I think they would be covered by liability insurance as our employees.
Liability?
Yeah.
If there were an injury or something like
Right,
that?
workers' comp type
Workers'
things,
comp,
but
okay.
when they go to work for staff EZ, that transfers to staff EZ.
I just wonder if they were a substitute that works every day, and some probably do, whether they were covered by any kind of other insurance
I think our normal liability.
by the
Yeah.
company. Okay. Any other questions?
And again, we consider this a trial run, because we do have the ARP funds, the federal funds that would cover this. So if we get into this and we realize in 3 years, this is not what we want to continue with, we can always change back. But right now is a great time, if we're gonna try this, to give it a shot and to see how it goes, and then to check the progress as we go.
How will they advertise themselves?
They will advertise everywhere. They have yard signs, ask to put banners up at schools, they will, obviously do social media and radio spots and all those kinds of things. They go to recruiting full-time, which I think is a huge, benefit of going to them, is they have the ability to go to things that we're just, well, you heard how lean we are, we're just limited by the number of people that we have.
Yeah. And I would add too, with this, if you approve this, we still have to wait to make sure that 3.0 is approved by the state. And then it's about a month lead time to get them off the ground and running. So this is not something that will happen overnight. This is a process, so it could be, theoretically could be November before Staff Easy is on the ground. And we just don't know all those dates until all these things fall into line.
So this is a 1-year contract and then you can renew, it's not
That's
3
it.
years?
That's correct.
Okay, because you had mentioned 3 years.
Right. 3 years is what we're aiming for, but it's a year-by-year contract. So if we get to the end of the school year and we just think, well, this is not working, we can always revert back to what we've been doing. But
3 years is from ESSER funding.
Right.
Which is what we're going to do at this point in time.
So I have a question about the employee. If Dawn Robinson becomes a substitute teacher for Easy Staff Easy, then do they provide benefits for those people, or if they keep them employed full-time, or?
I think there are some additional things that they do.
Some
that
incentives
we're not
perhaps?
able to do for our substitutes. Yeah, some
Right.
incentive programs and other things, if they work a certain amount, those kind of things that they put into place.
Because I could see that would be a real advantage for someone that wanted to be a substitute teacher, especially if you live here, you've got a lot of systems close by, you could probably stay busy every day if you wanted to.
Yeah.
But then, if you're gonna work full-time, you'd like to have some kind of benefits.
Right.
Yeah, they have some options that we just don't have for them.
Okay.
That's what I was thinking about.
I don't
There
remember,
will be training for these people who've never taught or.
They will do training, and pretty much they will, adjust that to whatever we request.
They do all the background checks and all that stuff.
Background checks will work very similarly to what we do with our janitorial staff. I'm the person that reads them and decides yes or no if they can come into our buildings or not. So it'll be a very similar process. There'll have to be a background check, of course. Anybody that comes into our schools to work has to be. But it'll be very similar to what we do with janitorial.
I have another question. I didn't see anything in the contract about, considering our current climate, you guys are struggling to find teachers, substitutes. What's going to be different about them? And is there any kind of guarantee? I mean, I know they probably have a larger pool, but does that mean, that pool is coming from, 100 miles away? I mean,
Yeah.
conceptually, how is this going to?
I'll let Nate talk, or excuse me, I'll let Kelly Kaiser talk about the percentage, but what I will tell you is what we found where I came from when we opened the other school district where I was, when you had a group come in that was specifically recruiting nothing but substitute teachers, they were able to go and do that much more creatively and had the time, quite frankly, to do that more than we did. Our human resources office is 2 people, and that's it. So when we talk about recruitment, we don't really go out actively recruiting substitutes, for example, at a job fair, because their time is just too limited to do that. What this company would be able to do is go set up at fairs, go set up at different events, go visit, different places that we just don't have time to do. So that's part of what your fee that they get helps pay for, is their travel to do those kind of things. And I don't know, Kelly, if you want anything else to that.
Yeah, I think the biggest advantage is they have more people to put in the problem, with the challenge. I think they're going to be less willing to give you a percentage in the climate we're in right now, just because it's very challenging staffing hourly positions anywhere you go. If you go to any business right now, that's very challenging. I think what they have is they have a lot more people to bring to bear on the issue.
And I get that. So, what was the percentage prior to COVID then?
Well,
Do we have anything?
if I thought back to where I came from, I'm trying to remember back. It was, I'm gonna say a range, let's say 80 to 90% would be your fill rate. And then if that company at the end of the year didn't hit that rate, then you would get a certain percentage of your funds back. But we're in good shape as far as that goes. Right now, I think what Kelly's saying is probably accurate as far as that goes. I don't know if anybody would be willing to say you're gonna be able to hit a 90% fill rate.
We were filling our own in the upper 80s to 90s, but it has dropped. I would say it's dropped every year that I've been in this role, certainly a little bit. It's just dropped over time.
Yeah.
Right now we're 60, 70%, and that's, part of that's due to COVID and the volume of absences. But,
right.
Well, my question really wasn't about what you guys are doing or not doing. I'm just trying to flesh out all of the information so we can.
The liaison between the school system and the staff.
Yes, ma'am. I'll do it.
Kristen?
So, I'm assuming that in their recruiting and in their hiring and stuff, they will get feedback from people as to why they do or don't want to sign up. How frequently will they share that with you? Are we gonna be able to get an update to tie into Charlie's point? If the reason they're having a hard time filling those spots is we're not paying enough, are they gonna be able to tell us that so that we can make adjustments as needed?
I think they'd be happy to tell you that. If it means we're gonna get more money, I'm pretty sure they'll be happy to tell you that. But I think they've been very open. Their the one thing I will say for them is their communication has been very good. Anything I've asked for, they've been willing to provide it. So I don't see communication or any of those kind of things being an issue working with this group.
I think would be good in October for them to have representatives at the meeting. We can vote tonight, but it'd be good to put somebody with them here, make a little presentation.
Well, and they did volunteer to come today, but I told them I think we had this, but we can always have them.
I think it'd be good for them to be here one time.
Yes.
I think they'd be willing to come. We just, you kind of know us, you know our faces, and if you want to meet with them, they'll be happy to come. I mean, they're on call right now.
We met the janitorial people, why don't we do them?
Carolyn?
Are these educators who have set the program up and the company they are?
They have some experience in business.
They're educators.
I know you talked to the principals. Are they excited about this possibility?
Yes.
I think the biggest thing for building people is if we can take some of the calling of people in the morning off of their office staff. That's very challenging to try to fill those last minute spots.
And it's every morning for them?
It's every morning.
Wow.
Right now it is multiple times a day.
All right, so we need a motion to entertain this.
I second.
Carolyn makes a motion to accept the contract. Nate, second. Any more questions, discussions? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. That's good, great. Yay. Now, you said this will take a little while to get going?
It will. We don't have an exact timeline right now because we do have to wait on the 3.0 application to be approved by the state. That's a funding mechanism for this.
Yeah, timeline will be driven by funding.
So, did we vote dependent on the funding? Because if that funding doesn't come through, do we have to re-vote not to implement?
Well, the ART was the application you did in consent had this funding mechanism in there. So if ART doesn't get approved, then this would not happen.
Come back to the board and do this again.
Yes.
A good time to try this,
Good question.
because we're getting the ESSER funding, if we get it.
Yeah, and I'm sure.
So, speaking of the ESSER funding, you all saw that application, and thank you, Dr. Barnes, for giving us the summary of all of that. And we went to see the comptroller, and what I learned, I'm sure that Dr. Barnes and everybody else in here that works in the central office knows this, but our money is reimbursable back to so the schools across the state of Tennessee. So we have to get permission from the state, and then they say, yeah, you can do it, and then we come back and we spend it, and they reimburse us. Whereas cities and counties are just given their money, And they have to spend it properly, because if they don't, they have to reimburse it back to the federal government. And so the schools won't have that concern, because we won't get to spend it if it's not approved to begin with. So it's a little bit different. And that's why that summary was so important, because you can see all the things that are being applied for in those ESSER funds and what we're going to do with that as a system. All right.
Okay.
Well, I believe it's Leah's turn. Leah's representatives up there.
Leah, stay here, or does Leah go up there?
No, you can stay right there.
All right. So I'll start off by saying we've had a great start for the school year over on Raider Drive. All of our fall sports have kicked off, including one new sport that started practice this past week. We have started a bowling team this year with history teacher Seth Lamagna as the coach. Their season officially starts on September 30th, and they currently have 18 members, both male and female students. And they're just really excited to get it going. I know Mr. Lamagna has been wanting to get a bowling team going for years. The football team is currently 2-1. They went 2-0 for the first time since 2017, and I know personally we went 1-0 for the first time since I've been in high school. This past weekend, number 2 Destin Thomas, our starting wide receiver and defensive back, committed to Memphis University, and number 67 Nick Nicodemus, our starting left tackle, recently committed to Tennessee Tech University as well. Our new Jumbotron was up and running for the Bradley game this past Friday, and we are very excited about that improvement to Benny Monroe. Our volleyball team is currently in 8th place in the state with a record of 13-6, and they have defeated several teams that are currently ranked above them, such as 8-time in a row defending state champs Brentwood. Last Thursday, they also defeated the Barrettes. The freshman, JV, and varsity teams all swept our crosstown rivals, and we are very proud of them, and we just can't wait to see how their season goes. I'm sure, as you guys know, the past 2 or 3 years they've gone to the state tournament. We're hoping to continue that trend and see how far they can go. Girls soccer currently has a winning record of 3-2. They have won against Polk County, McMinn Central, and the Chattanooga School of Arts and Sciences. Our cross-country team has had a great start to the season, with Ryan Lovelace winning the overall this past weekend in Rome, Georgia at Berry College against a tough competition. And also this past weekend, several other runners posted personal best times. Lastly, our golf teams. The girls' golf has had 2 matches where they shot 5 under par, which is a school record. And for boys' golf, Trip Hall tied for first in the Cookeville Invitational. And moving on from sports, our parking over at the high school. The VIP parkers were able to paint their parking spots on August 29th and had a great time doing that, as they always do. This is the first year that the lower lot and middle lots have both been available for VIP spots, because it's normally just the middle lot, so we've opened that up a little more. And there is a makeup day for painting on September 19th for students who either didn't finish their painting their spot or weren't able to start painting that day. Obviously today we started our mask requirement, and from what I could tell, about 50-50 on who was wearing it and who wasn't, but it was definitely more than who was wearing it this past week, so I think that was a positive change. Our marching band and color guard, they are putting the finishing touches on their competitive routine. The first competition is coming up on September 18th, and they are performing Time After Time, Hazy Shade of Winter, Too Much Time on My Hands, Time Warp, Time in a Bottle, and Sign of the Times. We can't wait to see all of their hard work that they put on the field every year. Some upcoming events is this Friday is the Hall of Fame, and we're excited to welcome our esteemed alumni back to Cleveland High School to celebrate all of their success. Homecoming is the week of September 24th, and our students are getting ready for several fun dress-up days and the possibility of a dance depending on what the COVID regulations are at that time. We'll play Walker Valley on that day for the first time since 2018, my freshman year, so we're very excited to meet our other crosstown rivals for the first time in several years. The theater department is working on their fall play. They've had auditions, and they're all practicing very hard. It's titled The Fall of the House of Usher, which was adopted by Tim Kelly from the classic tale by Edgar Allan Poe. The shows will be held on September 23rd, 26th, 27th, and 28th, with the show times being 7 o'clock on the 23rd, 27th, and 28th, and 2:30 on the 26th. Admission for adults will be $10, and students will get in for $7. Our Extended Learning Fifth Block program, or EL5, begins on September 13th. EL5 will be available every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday from 3 to 5. So there's teachers that will stay after school and help students who just think that they need a little extra help in their classes, so they can stay after school for that. And then our picture retakes. Life Touch will be at the high school on September 27th for makeup pictures for all students. And that's what we've had going on over at Raider Drive.
Anybody have any questions for Leah? I do. So, our crosstown rival game last week is finished, and I hope everybody behaved themselves. I don't know if they did or not, but we're gonna play Walker Valley. Do you think that that's gonna be the same kind of atmosphere that it is when we play Bradley? Good or bad, or for whatever it is?
I think that it'll definitely be exciting because obviously the schools, we can have big rivalry weeks, but I mean, the week after we'll go out to eat with our friends from Bradley or our friends from Walker. So it's always just a big kind of pride thing of whose school's better.
Sure.
I do think that Walker will be less than Bradley, but I think it might be a little more than usual because we haven't played them in so long. But I don't think it'll be anywhere near as the different threats that maybe in past years we've heard. Honestly, this year, everything seemed really okay. I know there was one incident of a couple students from Bradley coming over to the lower lot at the high school and taking some of the bears off the cars. And then obviously we always have Twitter, but honestly there wasn't anything big, especially from the Cleveland side that I saw going through. And I think just Walker will be even less than that because we're just not used to having a big rivalry with Walker Valley.
I was interested in that because I know all of the students, you all go to church together, you live next door to one another at all of these three high schools in this community, and so the rivalries are fun if they're kept in that perspective, and that's what we hope.
Yes,
Charlie, you can vouch for the fact we had to stop a rivalry years ago for a while because the adults, not the students, got out of hand. But,
Exactly right.
We like to keep it a healthy, fun competition. We like to have that. So I'm glad we're playing Walker Valley.
Me too.
That was a great report too, by the way. I mean,
Oh,
really
thank
good.
you. I spent a lot of my day putting some stuff together.
I just want to remind you, I think everybody got that, on the 17th, they're having the dedication of the Bobby Scott sign. And Hal again, he's already got the square up in front of the field house and be getting the letters on it pretty soon. But they're going to have a reception for Coach Scott and his family on the 17th, a week from this Friday, if you can make it or so.
The reception will be in the
Classroom
Commons?
and leadership and right off the arena lobby.
On the lobby, okay.
And what I understand, David Beckler and Bill Erndorf are trying to get at least a representative from every class. He was there, to come, so should be a good night.
So please come if you can and
Yeah.
stay as long as you want. There's a ball game on afterwards, and so that'll be a good, happy evening to recognize Coach Scott. All right, the delegates to the TSBA annual conference. We think we're having it. We haven't heard anything.
As of right now, we are.
It's at the Opryland Hotel, and always in November. They did cancel it last year because of COVID. We don't know what they're going to do this year. So does anybody on the board know they wouldn't go even if they were going to have it? Because I don't want to appoint a delegate. Tom won't be there. So I don't want to appoint a delegate that's not going to be there.
It depends on what time they play in Knoxville, whatever I'm going. I could leave it lunch, I could leave it late.
Well, I'm crossing you off my list.
The tickets are not cheap, so.
I will not be on that, in that conference.
You're not going to be able to be
Yeah, I
there.
have another
Okay,
conference
so
I'm attending.
I'm going to have Peggy, Carolyn, because you're our TSBA board representative, I would like you to represent us. Charlie, and Krista, if you would do that. And then we'll just shuffle like we always do, depending on who can be there and who
I don't
can't.
care to do it, but we won't know the game times of that Monday, so.
And if they do have it virtually, then those will be our 4 delegates, and they can do that virtually. And anybody that can at the last minute, just let me know, because we'll find another board member to step in and do that, especially virtually, we can do that. But I think Julie has to send those names off to TSBA, so we can do that. All right, anything else, Dr. Dyer?
I do not.
Anybody else on the board have anything? Krista?
With our lunch and learn, are we going to be able to continue to go into the buildings depending on their tier level? Or will we be notified
Yeah,
if that changes?
I think that's fine. You would count as an academic visitor in that sense.
So we're going to visit Mayfield
Yes.
this week. And tonight, we have the Southeast conference, the Southeast District meeting. Carolyn, you're not gonna have to host that.
No,
You don't?
I don't have to do anything.
Really?
Right. I
That's
talked
too
with Sandy Jones last week, and it's just, I think it's like a webinar like we had the other day. I'm not even sure it's a Zoom kind of thing.
No, I think that we were emailed a legislative survey today, if you all look at your emails. I think they want your input for that. And what that does is help the TSBA board frame the resolutions to bring to the delegate assembly.
When I looked at that, I just glanced at it, but I thought it was something we did tonight. Is it not something we do along with the
I think
webinar?
that's the way I read it too.
Yeah, yeah, just look at it if you had a chance, so you can kind of, if we need to.
It was TSBA today,
It
legislative
has to be
survey.
legislation.
I have a TSBA board meeting October the 1st, 1st and 2nd, I think, in Nashville, so I'll be attending that.
That's great, that's good.
Are we gathering tonight
Yes.
here or at AOB?
Here.
Here?
Mhm.
Okay.
So their meeting starts 5 o'clock Central Time, which is obviously 6 o'clock our time. And Julie's going to pick up some food for us, and we'll watch and take part in. I believe there's some awards that are given out tonight for boardsmanship, that kind of stuff. So if you can come, please do. It'd be great. I'm not sorry we're not traveling to Sequatchie County, but Carolyn has informed TSBA that it's our turn to rotate through and host. We haven't done that in a long time.
I haven't heard anything yet. But
And we'll see, so hopefully we can, and then we can plan from there, so that'll be fun. Leah, you're welcome to come tonight if you want to watch. It's school boards from the southeast area of Tennessee. And what they do is have some presentations about legislation that might be up and coming next year affecting our schools. And then they have normally it's a dinner where they give out awards, but all they'll do is flash up awards on the screen, and that'll be the end of it, I guess. So it won't even take an hour probably. Peggy?
Who do we thank for our presents?
Okay.
Laura Hudson.
Laura Hudson. No, thank
But
you.
this one is,
Rennie.
Rennie. Okay, Lauren Rennie.
Thank you for that. Yes, please pass that on. Anybody have anything else? All right, we will adjourn by general consent. Thank you.